You know that feeling when a smile should feel warm, but instead something in your gut twists like a quiet alarm? There's no proof you can hold in your hands, no obvious act to point at. Yet each time you walk away from them, it's as though a little of your light has dimmed. You feel smaller, drained, as if your own reflection has grown uncertain. Maybe it's a colleague whose jokes always land at your expense in front of others, wrapped in just enough humor that no one else notices the sting. Maybe it's a friend whose words make you doubt your own memory until you're unsure whether the past unfolded the way you remember. Or a family member whose every expression of concern somehow ends with you following their plan, not your own. The worst part is subtle and insidious. A creeping suspicion that the problem might be you, that you're too sensitive, too reactive, too much. But that's exactly how those with dangerous intentions work. They don't march in with open threats, banners of hostility unfurled. They slip quietly into the architecture of your days. One carefully chosen comment here, a lingering gesture there. Always small enough to pass as harmless, until you notice the scaffolding of their influence rising around you, invisible to everyone but you. By the time awareness sharpens, you're already within their orbit, and like a planet pulled toward a dark star, breaking free feels harder than you ever imagined. The ancient Stoics understood this danger long before psychology had a name for it. They warned that the gravest threat is not the enemy you can see coming with drawn sword. It is the one who stands close enough to whisper in your ear, close enough to trace the edges of your mind with their fingertips. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the quality of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. If someone else's presence alters those thoughts in a way that makes you weaker, less certain, or less free, it's not guidance, it's corrosion. In today's world where connection is constant and attention is currency, these forces are harder to see than ever. They operate in the workplace Slack message, in the friendly DM, in the offhand remark at a family dinner. They cloak themselves in politeness, empathy, and social charm. But their aim is always the same, to make you question yourself enough that you begin to surrender ground without realizing it. This is why the Stoic path demands vigilance, not paranoia, but awareness. Epictetus taught that no one can harm your soul without your consent. And yet we give that consent in small, unnoticed increments. A silence when we should speak, a nod when we mean to resist, a step back when we should hold the line. Today we're going to strip away the masks. We will name 8 toxic behaviors that are not just unpleasant quirks or bad habits. They are precision tools used by truly dangerous people. And once you see them clearly, you cannot unsee them. The moment they come into focus, you will feel a shift. That tightening in your chest will no longer be confusion. It will be clarity. We will examine how they wrap manipulation in kindness, twist reality until you no longer trust your own mind, feed on your setbacks, deflect every shard of blame, isolate you from those who keep you grounded, hide envy behind the curtain of concern, weaponize charm, and live without the capacity for remorse. And through it all, we will weave the Stoic defense, ancient wisdom reborn in the modern age, to help you guard the fortress of your mind. Because the true measure of strength is not in striking back at every provocation, but in seeing the battlefield for what it is, in choosing where and if you will fight. This is not about turning hard or cold. It's about turning awake, so that when the next smile comes toward you and something in your gut tightens, you won't ignore it. You'll know what stands before you, and you'll know exactly how to protect what matters most: your mind, your peace, and your freedom. Some people control with open force, threats, ultimatums, raised voices. But the more dangerous ones, they use kindness, or at least what appears to be kindness. This is the sort that doesn't feel like an attack at all. It feels like care, like support, like someone stepping into your life to make it better. And that's exactly why it works so well. because you don't feel the need to defend yourself against what looks like generosity. It often begins with small, thoughtful gestures. They bring you coffee on a morning when you're clearly exhausted. They offer to handle a difficult task so you can rest. They check in to see if you're doing okay, always at the right time. These acts seem pure, but gradually a pattern emerges. Every favor comes with an invisible thread attached. The first time you resist their suggestion, they remind you of everything they've done for you. When you want to make a decision they don't agree with, they question whether you're thinking it through enough, which really means you're not thinking the way they want you to. This isn't about helping you grow stronger. It's about making sure you believe you can't do without them. They don't bind you with chains. They bind you with gratitude, a gratitude they manipulate until it becomes a leash. And once that leash is in place, you find yourself hesitating before making moves on your own. You begin checking with them first, not because you have to, but because you've been conditioned to. The Stoics saw this as a quiet form of enslavement. Epictetus taught that freedom is found in owning your own mind and choices, and that the moment you hand that control to someone else, you've surrendered the keys to your life. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to accept help only in ways that do not weaken his independence. I knew a man once whose business partner seemed endlessly generous. He took on extra work, introduced him to valuable contacts, even covered expenses without asking for repayment. But whenever the man wanted to act independently, the partner's face would harden. "After everything I've done for you," he'd say, "I'd think you'd trust me on this." Over time, the man stopped trusting his own instincts. Every decision felt like it needed approval, and by the time he realized, his confidence had eroded to dust. Kindness that leaves you smaller, more hesitant, more dependent is not kindness. It is control. True care empowers you to stand on your own feet, not lean forever on someone else's. In the modern world, this form of manipulation can hide in mentorships, in friendships, even in romantic relationships. It wears the costume of loyalty while quietly rearranging the boundaries of your independence. If you feel that someone's help always seems to bind you closer to them, trust that instinct. Accept help with gratitude, yes, but keep the reins of your own choices firmly in your hands. Let their support be a bridge you walk across, not a cage you live inside. Because the most stoic act you can take is to remember, no matter how generous the gift, it should never cost you the freedom to choose your own path. One of the most insidious weapons a manipulator can wield isn't force, it's doubt. Not doubt in them, but doubt in yourself. Doubt carefully planted, watered, and nurtured until you no longer trust your own mind. This is the essence of gaslighting, rewriting your memory, twisting your perception, and making you wonder if you've lost your grip on reality. It rarely begins with something obvious. You remember a conversation one way, they insist it happened differently. You're certain they promised something, they tell you you've misunderstood. At first you shrug it off. Miscommunication happens to everyone. But slowly you notice a pattern. Every time your recollection clashes with theirs, you are wrong, always. And each time you concede, you hand over another piece of your authority to define what's real. Once they convince you that you can't trust your own mind, they no longer need to prove themselves right with facts. They simply are the facts. And you, unsteady and off balance, begin deferring to their version of events without even realizing it. The Stoics warned about this centuries before the term gaslighting was coined. Epictetus called the mind the final fortress. Once that fortress falls, everything else is lost. If an enemy takes your home, you can rebuild. If they take your possessions, you can recover. But if they take your clarity, your ability to trust your own perception, then they own you completely. I once knew a woman who started keeping a private journal, writing down important conversations and decisions. Months later, a friend tried to convince her that certain events had never happened, or had happened differently. She opened her journal and read aloud the exact words she'd written on the day it occurred. That moment shattered the fog. She realized it wasn't her memory failing. It was someone else deliberately rewriting her history. Gaslighting works because it is quiet, patient, and calm. They won't shout to make you believe them. They'll sigh, shake their head, and make you feel foolish for thinking otherwise. They'll say, "I never said that," or "You're remembering wrong," with such steady confidence that you begin to suspect your own mind. Over time, you filter your experiences through their approval, and when you do, they've won. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." The Stoic defense is to anchor yourself to verifiable truth. Keep records. Seek perspectives from people you trust. Pay attention to patterns, not just isolated incidents. Most of all, refuse to surrender the authority to define your reality. If someone consistently makes you question what you saw, heard, or experienced, consider the possibility that it's not your memory that's flawed, it's their intentions. The moment you see that clearly, you reclaim what they've been trying to steal from you all along: your clarity, your certainty, and your right to stand on solid ground in your own mind. There is a particular kind of smile that says everything words will never admit. It appears in the faint curl of the lips when you share bad news, in the spark behind the eyes when you stumble, in the way someone seems unusually interested in the details of your setbacks. This is not harmless curiosity. It is schadenfreude, the quiet pleasure some people take in the suffering of others. And when it comes from someone close to you, it's not just toxic, it's dangerous. The danger is what it reveals about their nature. People who feed on the pain of others are not content to merely observe. If they can subtly contribute to your misfortune, they will. Maybe it's a cutting remark in front of the right audience, a piece of advice designed to fail, or forgetting to mention an opportunity until it's too late for you to act. Each of these small acts chips away at you, because in the strange arithmetic of a fragile ego, your loss becomes their gain. The Stoics understood that malice corrodes both the one who harbors it and the one it targets. Seneca wrote that no one is more unhappy than those who cannot thrive without adversity, not their own, but the adversity of others. People like this are not competitors in the true sense. They do not aim to surpass you through skill or effort. They prefer to pull you down to their level, so the comparison no longer makes them feel small. I once knew a colleague who reacted to good news with a strained, polite smile, but lit up when hearing of someone's failure. When I was passed over for a promotion, he leaned in with unusual eagerness, asking leading questions and later repeating my answers to others in the office. Over time, I noticed a pattern. He was always around when bad news broke, and always absent when there was reason to celebrate. His energy didn't just feed on negativity, it sought it out. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the quality of our lives is determined by the quality of our thoughts. If someone's thoughts grow in the shadow of your setbacks, their presence will erode your peace. The Stoic solution is clear in principle, though often difficult in practice. Remove yourself from environments where such people can feed on you. Surround yourself with those who celebrate your wins without reservation and who stand beside you when you fall, not because it entertains them, but because they care. If you sense that someone quietly savors your pain, trust that instinct. It is not paranoia, it is perception. And protecting your peace from such a person is not cruelty, it is wisdom. Because the one who smiles at your suffering will never stand for your success. Some people have an allergy to responsibility. No matter the situation, no matter how clear the evidence, the fault will always belong to someone else. If a project fails, it's because a colleague didn't pull their weight. If an argument turns ugly, it's because you misunderstood or overreacted. Even when every fact points to their actions, they sidestep, deflect, and twist the story until they stand as the misunderstood victim, and you somehow are left holding the blame. Over time, this constant shifting does more than frustrate you. It reshapes the truth itself. You start anticipating their accusations before they even come. You take on more than your share of work to prevent conflict. You apologize for things you didn't do, just to keep the peace. Slowly, you start living inside a false narrative, one where you are perpetually at fault and they are perpetually justified. The danger here is not just manipulation of facts, it's manipulation of identity. They're not only rewriting what happened, they're rewriting who you are in the story. And when you live too long in that altered version, you begin to see yourself as the problem. That's exactly what they want. Because if you are always the problem, they never have to change. The Stoics saw this as a kind of moral cowardice. Epictetus taught that what happens to us matters less than how we respond, and that refusing to own our role in events is a refusal to grow. A person who will not accept their mistakes will repeat them endlessly, often at the expense of everyone around them. Stay close to such a person, and you risk becoming the scapegoat for every one of those repetitions. I once worked under a manager who perfected this art. When deadlines were missed, it was because his team failed to anticipate changes he never communicated. When clients complained, it was because account managers mismanaged expectations, despite following his instructions to the letter. Talented, competent people quit, not from the workload, but from the constant erosion of their dignity. And every departure became, in his mind, proof that those people weren't committed enough. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Chronic blame shifters live in defiance of both principles. They weave webs of distortion that require constant maintenance. The Stoic response is to anchor yourself in objective facts. Keep records. Document events. Resist the pull to defend yourself against every distortion. They thrive on dragging you into endless arguments that go nowhere. Sometimes the only way to preserve your integrity is to step out from under their shadow entirely. Because if someone never admits fault, it is not proof of their perfection. It is evidence of their unwillingness to be human. And you cannot teach responsibility to someone devoted to avoiding it. But you can refuse to carry the weight they discard. One of the most effective ways for a dangerous person to gain control over you isn't through open confrontation. It's through quiet, calculated isolation. They don't demand that you cut ties with your friends or family outright. That would be too obvious. Instead, they plant seeds. Subtle comments about how your friends don't really get you. Hints that your family doesn't appreciate you like they should. Suggestions that certain colleagues secretly resent you. Each remark seems harmless, even protective. They frame it as concern, as if they're the only one brave enough to tell you the truth. At first, you might brush it off, but repeated often enough, these seeds take root. Without realizing it, you begin pulling back from the people who've always been your anchor. Isolation is strategic. The fewer perspectives you have, the more dependent you become on theirs. As your circle shrinks, so does your access to reality. Soon you rely on them not just for companionship, but for validation, advice, and even your sense of identity. Once they are the only voice in your ear, their influence becomes absolute. That's when control is no longer a possibility, it's a certainty. The Stoics understood that humans are made for community. Marcus Aurelius wrote that to cut ourselves off from others is to wound our own nature. To a Stoic, isolation by choice can be restorative, but isolation imposed by someone else is a slow dismantling of your freedom. I knew a woman whose partner began with small criticisms of her best friend, calling her too negative, a bad influence. Soon the same judgment fell on her sister, her mentor, even her parents. He never forbade her from seeing them. He simply made her feel that these relationships were harmful. Within 2 years, she realized she no longer spoke to anyone regularly except him. When the relationship ended, the shock wasn't just emotional, it was the sudden emptiness where her support system used to be. Marcus also reminded himself that the quality of your life is shaped by the quality of the people you keep close. Letting someone else decide who stays in your life is handing over a piece of that quality. And once given away, it's not easily regained. The Stoic defense is vigilance. If your world seems to be getting smaller, ask yourself, is this my choice or someone else's design? True care will never demand that you shrink your connections. It will encourage you to strengthen them. Anyone who tries to strip away your allies is not protecting you. They are positioning themselves to own you. The first step in breaking that hold is stepping back into the company of those who want to see you strong, not alone. Not all jealousy comes with scowls or sharp words. The most dangerous kind often arrives dressed as concern, its voice soft, its tone measured, its mask convincing. These people will never openly say they resent your success. Instead, they cloak their envy and guidance, offering words that seem reasonable, but are calculated to slow you down, make you hesitate, and keep you from stepping beyond the limits they've quietly drawn for you. You tell them about a big opportunity you've earned, and they smile faintly before saying, "That's great, but are you sure you're ready for something that risky?" You share news of a personal milestone, and they respond, "I'm happy for you. Just remember, things like that don't last forever." It sounds like wisdom, but if you listen closely, there's an undercurrent. Doubt yourself. This strategy works because it hides in plain sight. Advice is supposed to help you, and because you want to believe in their good intentions, you take their words seriously. But over time, those subtle injections of caution accumulate. You begin second-guessing yourself before taking bold steps. You start weighing their reservations more heavily than your own instincts. Without realizing it, you shrink, not because you failed, but because you've been convinced it's safer to stay small. The Stoics warned against letting others dictate the boundaries of your potential. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let your own reason be your guide." Jealousy disguised as advice is a direct attack on that inner reason. It doesn't shout, "Stop." It whispers, "Wait," until waiting becomes a habit and habit becomes a cage. I once knew a young entrepreneur who landed a major contract that could transform his career. A colleague congratulated him warmly, then said, "Be careful. A deal that big can ruin you if you're not careful." It sounded like genuine caution, so he slowed down, turned away from new opportunities, and played it safe. Months later, he learned that same colleague had stepped into the very deals he had passed on. What looked like concern had been competition in disguise. Seneca cautioned that the mind must be protected from subtle poisons just as much as from obvious ones. True advice expands your vision, strengthens your resolve, and equips you to move forward with clarity. Advice that leaves you hesitant, smaller, or less certain is not advice. It's sabotage. The Stoic response is simple but essential. Weigh every piece of counsel against your own values and experience. Ask yourself, does this make me stronger, or does it make me doubt my path? Those who genuinely care about you will never fear your growth. They will encourage it, even if it means you outshine them. Anyone who plants seeds of doubt in the soil of your success is not a gardener. They are a weed. And weeds are not negotiated with. They are removed. Charm, when genuine, is a bridge. It connects, warms, and builds trust. But in the hands of someone with darker intentions, charm becomes a polished blade. They know exactly how to make you feel seen, how to mirror your interests, how to remember the details that make you think, "This person really understands me." They'll offer the perfect compliment at just the right moment, drawing you in before you've even considered whether their actions match their words. This is the strategy to bypass your critical thinking. Because when someone makes you feel valued and understood, your guard drops. You stop looking for inconsistencies, you dismiss small red flags, and you start defending them to others. They couldn't possibly mean harm, you say, because of how good they've been to you. That's exactly the shield they want you to hold for them. The Stoics cautioned against being seduced by appearances. Epictetus taught that we must judge others by their actions, not the image they present. A charming smile tells you nothing about a person's character. Consistent behavior over time is the only reliable measure. I once knew a man in a professional network who could light up any room he entered. He remembered names, delivered quick wit with perfect timing, and made everyone feel important. People adored him. But those who worked closely with him noticed a pattern. He was generous when it cost him nothing, but vanished when real effort or sacrifice was required. Promises made publicly dissolved in private. By the time most people realized his charm was a mask, he had already gathered the connections and advantages he came for. Marcus Aurelius wrote that, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." A person who thinks only of their own gain will eventually reveal that color, no matter how skillfully they paint over it. The Stoic defense against charm as weapon is patient observation. Watch how someone treats those who can give them nothing. Notice if their kindness survives when the spotlight is gone. Charm in itself is not evil, but when it is used as bait, it becomes one of the most effective tools of manipulation because it makes you want to believe. And wanting to believe is the most dangerous state you can be in when dealing with someone whose loyalty lies only with themselves. If you find that someone's charisma makes you overlook behavior you would normally question, take a deliberate step back. Ask yourself, am I responding to who they truly are or to the image they want me to see? In a world where charm can be a mask, the clearest vision comes from refusing to be blinded by the shine. Among all the signs of a truly dangerous person, there is one that stands like a warning fire in the night: the complete inability or unwillingness to feel remorse. They can shatter trust, cause deep harm, and leave chaos behind them, yet never pause to acknowledge the damage they've done. Instead of apologizing, they justify. Instead of reflecting, they deflect. If someone feels hurt by their actions, it is, in their view, the other person's fault, for being too sensitive, for misunderstanding, for not seeing the bigger picture. In their mind, mistakes are not opportunities to grow, but threats to their carefully crafted image. And so they erase them, not with repair, but with excuses. This lack of repentance is more than arrogance. It is a guarantee that the harm will continue, because without acknowledgement, there can be no change. When someone sees no problem in their own behavior, they are free to repeat it endlessly, without the weight of conscience to slow them down. The Stoics saw self-examination as the foundation of virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about reviewing his actions each day, searching for faults and striving to correct them. To the Stoic, a mistake is not the end. It is a mirror that, if faced honestly, can lead to transformation. An unrepentant person refuses to look into that mirror at all. They have built an identity on being untouchable, and to protect that identity, they will sacrifice truth itself. I once knew a man who betrayed his closest friend by revealing deeply personal information. When confronted, he didn't deny it. He didn't even appear embarrassed. He simply shrugged and said, "It's not a big deal. They'll get over it." Weeks later, when the friendship dissolved, he told others it ended because his friend couldn't handle the truth. No flicker of regret, no pause for self-reflection, just a seamless rewrite of reality in which he remained spotless. The Stoic response to such people is not to spend your energy trying to make them accountable. You cannot force humility into a heart that has armored itself against it. Epictetus warned, "You cannot expect figs from a tree that bears thorns." In the same way, you cannot expect remorse from a heart that has hardened itself against it. Being close to someone like this is like living beside a fire that never goes out. It may smolder quietly for a while, but it will burn again, inevitably. And because they never acknowledge the damage, they never learn to control the flames. Protecting yourself means accepting that the apology you hope for will never come, and understanding that this is not your loss, it is their limitation. True strength lies in the courage to admit when we are wrong, to repair what we've broken, and to grow from it. The unrepentant heart will never take that path. And the sooner you accept that truth, the sooner you can choose a path that keeps your mind, your peace, and your dignity intact. We've walked through 8 toxic behaviors that, on their own, can erode your confidence and peace, but together form a blueprint for control. The most dangerous people rarely reveal their hand all at once. They hide behind gestures of kindness that keep you indebted. They distort your reality until you second-guess your own mind. They feed on your setbacks, shift blame until you carry their faults, and quietly sever your ties to those who could protect you. They mask envy as advice, weaponize charm to disarm your judgment, and, when the damage is done, feel no remorse at all. The Stoics taught that while you cannot change the nature of others, you have absolute power over the boundaries you set. Awareness is your first defense, because once you can name these patterns, you stop excusing them. You stop telling yourself stories to soften their edges. You stop believing that your empathy will turn their nature toward good. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. These people are impediments to your clarity, your freedom, your inner steadiness. The Stoic path is not to meet them blow for blow, but to master the art of deciding where and if your energy is spent. Some battles are not worth fighting head-on. Some require only a quiet, decisive step away. Protecting your mind, your peace, and your dignity is not selfish. It is the foundation of a life worth living. When you guard these things, you guard the ability to live by your own reason, not by someone else's design. If any of these behaviors remind you of someone in your life, don't dismiss the warning. Observe without illusion. Decide without guilt. Act without hesitation. Set boundaries that are clear and unshakable. And remember, true strength isn't proven in how many enemies you can defeat. It's measured in how fiercely you protect the life you are building and how faithfully you keep your soul free from capture.